Subscribe to the channel. What's up, humans? It's me. Well, I was thinking about this, and I think a lot of people are not that good at learning languages, or they're having a hard time with it. We'll say that. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And what I want to focus on is motivation. So motivation might be the primary driver of learning. And I would say that people oversimplify motivation, and a lot of people don't understand motivation on a philosophical level. If we take the word of Arthur Schopenhauer, then we should entertain the idea that motivation is a causal force, comparable to stimulus in plants and gravity in stones, and the way that these forms of causality stack on top of each other. So you must consider that for causes in general, causes can stack up. Causes can accumulate and converge towards a single thing. People like to ask, why did X happen? Why did X do Y? Etc. These questions, to be answered accurately, they should account for the interconnectedness of different causes. When we talk about general phenomenon or long-term patterns, or things that started a long time ago, we should consider how one thing can cause, for example, we can say that A causes B and then B also causes A. You might think, cause and effect, the cause must happen before the effect. But the effect can go back to its cause and cause it to happen again. Basically two different entities, two different things can cause events to happen to each other in sequence. And then this creates a recurring chain, a continuous chain. So, for example, back to languages, there is an issue with motivation. So people are not motivated. Motivation is a causal force of behavior. We can at least argue that case. And accepting that model, then if we can increase the motivation of the human will learn faster. So these people, they will, what is it? I don't know. They'll go to school. They go to a school to learn a language. And then in that process, they are attending structured classes. They're being fed words to learn. Oh, you have to learn these words of vocabulary. They're trying to memorize the words. And somehow this is still going on in the current year, when for anybody who's actually looked into this, there's a better way to do it. Or a more effective and possibly less expensive is immersion. And, real immersion does require interest. If you're not interested in the actual experience of being immersed, then, how can you be interested really in the language? Why would you be interested in the language if you're not immersing in it? Or you didn't want to immerse in it? So, but people, we talk about immersion learning. I promote it a lot. But we have this issue where, I'm struggling to articulate myself here. But the issue is that these people are not having the full motivation here. And because a lot of the motivation is like purely rational, or it's like, if I learn this language, I can talk with the people that live around me, or I can make money, or this is a popular language, it's profitable to learn. In my experience, that's not actually been an effective motivation to learn a language. For me to learn a language, it's like, are there TV shows that I want? Do I want to travel there? Do I believe in the vision of the country, or at least some of the people who speak that language? So like, I might want to visit some country that, for a time. Maybe I like Taiwan, for example. and I want to visit Taiwan, I really love the values of Taiwan, then I would go through the effort to learn Mandarin Chinese and then their dialect and then the writing system they prefer and how it's different from the other writing system for the same language. I would go through the effort if I actually at least wanted to live there, if I at least wanted to consume the media of the country, if I at least wanted to know about the ideas that are being discussed in the country. Because one of the things that you learn, so many things you can discover when you learn another language, especially if it's a very foreign language. I have to give a lot of credit to Chinese here because it's so fundamentally different that it's interesting. If you take care to learn etymology, first of all, let me just explain. Etymology is the study of where words come from. So, like the word pedestrian, it's a prefix-suffix combination. So, the prefix ped refers to like ped as in foot, like pedal. So it's two pedals, 2 feet, so to speak, which is ironically similar to the word paddle. So then maybe there's an etymological connection with that. So you can see how when you hear the sound and you perhaps see the symbol of a thing, you see how it might be connected to other things. It's like a taxonomy. A taxonomy's classification. It's whatever. So my point is that to learn a language, you need to have the motivation for it, and there are multiple types of motivation. And similar to as much as two causes or two patterns, two things can cause each other to happen. In the same way, we can have multiple causes for the same event. We can have multiple causes for the same pattern, the same phenomenon, the same effect. And in the same way, you can have multiple reasons to take an action. So you can have multiple reasons to do a thing. So, for example, like say you're on trial, or someone's on trial. Let's detach it a little bit. So let's say that there's someone on trial, the suspect, the defendant, and they're being accused of a crime. The prosecution has to typically explain a motivation for the suspect to have committed the crime so that it's plausible to convict them. There has to be, ideally, they have to prove, beyond reasonable doubt that the suspect actually did the thing, and then part of proving that is saying that they had the motivation to do it. So, if you accuse someone of a cover-up and you're saying that's a crime, there has to be an explainable motivation for the action, or otherwise an explainable cause, maybe a misunderstanding, a theory, whatever. Anyway, so to learn a language, you have to have multiple motivations. If you really want to learn it effectively, if you want it to sustain it, then you must have multiple reasons to do it. So some people want to promote profit as a motive to learn a language. Other people want to promote something else, but I don't know. It's I don't think it's worth that much for pandering alone. Like if you're just trying to pander to people, I don't think it's worth it. But if you really want to learn about how the people actually think, or how their way of thinking could be fundamentally different from yours, then learning the language helps to reveal that. So, if you look at the origin of Chinese characters and you analyze them and you know their parts and such, you may notice that, or you may infer from the patterns that this language was basically designed by men. Because, for example, the word for good, pronounced hao, as a symbol, is actually a combination of two symbols. On the left is the image of a woman, and on the right is a symbol of a child. And that is written from the perspective of a man. And with that being the case, what else are we supposed to conclude? We know historically that for whatever reason they were the primary writers at that time, and then once it became established, that was the precedent. And then you may be able to think of some other theory about why this is the case, but I believe what I just explained is plausible. Whatever. So if you like, breaking down the origin of words, then and analyzing the differences between languages, or how different languages can basically say the same thing in different ways. For example, the Chinese word for alien in the sense of intergalactic is 外星人, which means outside star person. And then when you translate foreign words literally, it's more interesting than if you translate it functionally, because you learn a bit more in the process, and sometimes it sounds funny too. It's like an outside star person. Okay, so that implies a lot. That implies that the aliens are people and that they're from an outside star. So that automatically precludes the idea of coming from the same solar system, for example. But it also lacks the ambiguity of the word alien, because that can mean just outsider in general. So that's another example of an interesting difference between English and Mandarin Chinese. So that's interesting as well. But there are other motivations, there are other reasons you can learn a language. Like if you want to move somewhere, you're like, I don't want to live in my country. I don't want to live in my current location right now. I want to live in a different country. Then that gives you, you're at least considering it, that at least traveling there, that can be a great motivation to learn a language, because you're going to be there, and that's going to be the main thing. You're going to have to rely on that. I think a lot of people are lazy, or they're scared, or they're whatever. I don't like it. It's like they may refuse to learn languages even if it could be useful for them. Their spouse may speak another language, their girlfriend or boyfriend speaks another language, but they don't bother to actually learn it. Or they move to some country, or are visiting some country, and they don't even bother to learn the language. They think it's too hard. They don't even want to start. These people believe that they have to go to perfect level to be worth it, and that's not how it works. Like, you don't have to commit to 5 years, 10 years, whatever. You don't have to commit to moving there. You don't even have to commit to going there. The languages can be learned piecemeal. They can be learned so tangentially. People, I don't know why they're like this. I've tried so much to encourage them, and they won't do it. And they say, oh, you're so talented at learning languages. But if they at least tried in the same way, if they used the same strategy, if they actually cared, if they really wanted to, they should be able to do it. Because, whatever, they have the ability to learn. They're not stones. So there are other reasons to learn a language. So for example, if you wanted to get married to somebody, imagine, say you like somebody, and you have a good connection somehow, and you wanna be with that person. Imagine how troublesome it would be if they could speak a language that you don't understand. Think about how many people, even if they only call their family members, and only speak to their family members in that language, wouldn't it bother you if you don't understand what they're saying? He or she could be saying anything. If you don't understand it, how can you know that the people who speak it, how do you know what they're saying or not saying? Can you even infer what they're saying or not saying? If you're going to marry somebody, you should learn their language, ideally. Just need to absolve myself there. because sometimes you just have to add a qualifier to loosen the load, to ease the burden a little bit. Oh, I think that's the case. Oh, that might be true. Something like that. Covering the behind, as you may say. God, I mean, there was more I was planning to say, but actually I don't feel like saying it right now. Life is a continual process, and we're continually moving through time, and everybody gets to stop living someday. So that's relevant somehow. Anyway, I guess that'll be it. We will continue later into the next video. And I want you to drink water. I want you to avoid consuming sugar. Don't be too scared of eating salt unless you have a specific issue with high blood pressure or some other medical condition. Please consult your doctor or a qualified medical professional for medical advice. This is not financial advice. This is language learning advice. And hopefully some philosophy as well. Goodbye.